All right, so with the war in Ukraine involving Russia continues to ramp up, the US continues to do its finger pointing and blaming other countries and threatening them as they don't bend to the will of US hegemony and buck trends. I want you to watch this video of India's External Affairs Minister, I believe that's his title, responding to a question from a reporter of India buying oil or still buying oil with what's going on in Ukraine from Russia.
I think I probably answer for both of us. First of all, thank you for the advice and suggestions in your question. I prefer to do it my way and articulate it my way. Now, as Secretary Blinken has pointed out, we have made a number of statements which outline our position in the UN, in our parliament, and in other forums. And briefly, what those positions state is that we are against the conflict. We are for dialogue and diplomacy. We are for urgent cessation of violence. And we are prepared to contribute in whatever way to these objectives. I noticed you refer to oil purchases. If you are looking at energy purchases from Russia, I would suggest that your attention should be focused on Europe, which probably we do buy some energy which is necessary for our energy security. But I suspect, looking at the figures, probably our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon. So you might want to think about it.
We'll turn to Lalit.
Okay, so that was actually kind of badass. Once again, that was India's External Affairs Minister, basically giving the West a bit of a reality check as to what's really going on here. So as I stated there in the beginning, India and many other countries, we'll get to that in a second, but India specifically has been very hands-off, very kind of idle in this situation with Russia. And by idle, I mean they're not particularly taking sides, but they are extremely sympathetic, as are other countries, to the grievances of the Putin regime in Russia in general. And they are a country that is displaying a little bit of sense in this whole ordeal as the West and their allies essentially give a hair on fire reaction to what's going on in regards to Russia and Ukraine. And in the process of doing so, reject peace deals and continue the war, so the bloodshed will continue as a result, etc., etc., etc. But that was amazing because India has basically been of the thought process, as he alluded there, yes, we want the war to come to an end. No, we don't support meaningless bloodshed and what have you. But you got to take a look at yourself. And then he responds to being asked about the oil. And this was actually kind of funny to me. He says, well, you might want to take a look at Europe, your closest ally over here. What we buy in a month is less than what they buy in a single afternoon. And if you look at what's coming out of Europe, specifically Germany, I mean, the leader of Deutsche Bank actually told us this. It came from himself that if Europe were to be cut off of Russian oil and gas, they would experience a catastrophe like none other. Instantly be a recession, you know? So they're really playing with fire if that's the thing that they would like to do. But I want to talk about something that happened recently, because with this, you don't get this. This isn't being played on CNN and MSNBC, that clip that I just played you in Fox. Here in America, in the West in general, the sentiment that you're getting is that Russia is struggling so greatly. Everything is going fine in Ukraine in regard to the Ukrainians. The West is going to emerge victorious eventually. And everybody is against Russia, right? That's the biggest thing. Biden, we've isolated them. It's over. Well, something happened recently. Oh, and by the way, before I get this, I almost let it slip my mind. Because of India's rhetoric in regards to this Ukraine issue, about a week ago, Antony Blinken came out and said that the U.S. is now looking into India's human rights abuses. So if you don't toe the line for the U.S., they look into your human rights abuses. The number one human rights abuser wants to look into the human rights abuses of other countries. Now, that's not here to say that other countries don't abuse human rights and do bad things, of course. And that's the thing that a lot of people like to zero in on. Somehow you're unjustly attacking America when you bring up the checkered past that it had, when it likes to bring up I don't know, different atrocities or other bad things that people do, as if you're doing America some great disrespect by doing so, when you're just giving an honest recount of history. But anyway, a recent event took place in the General Assembly. There was a vote to remove Russia from the Human Rights Council. We're going to talk a lot about human rights here in this video. Well, just to give you a bit of a backstory on this, there are 193 members in the General Assembly. They consist of countries with delegates that represent them. 93 voted to remove Russia from the Human Rights Council. Let that sink in. There's 193 members. 93 voted to remove Russia. That's not a majority. 93 isn't half or over half of 193. 24 voted against it. That 24 included Russia, China, Cuba, North Korea, India, Iran, and 58 abstained. And the rest of them didn't bother to vote at all. But what you're getting from Western media is that, oh my God, they got kicked off the Human Rights Council. The rest of the world is fed up with this. No, the rest of the world has a different opinion. Yeah, they do. They really do. And yeah, I remind you, China and India specifically, the two most populated countries on earth, voted against this. The world is not on the side of the West and America and really feeling for what's going on in Ukraine right now while demonizing Russia and Vladimir Putin. And don't get it misconstrued. I'm not here trying to bleed sympathies for the man and what's going on in Russia. No, not at all. I've condemned it in the past, and I'm sure to do it much more in the future. But I'm just giving you an honest recount of what's going on. The sentiment that's going on across other countries and their media and their political leaders are much different from what's going on in the U.S., and you won't do yourself any favors by pretending like that's not true, like it doesn't exist, like it's somehow an issue. No, this is just what's actually going on and what's taking place, and you're not getting an accurate recount of it. But what you are getting is Joe Biden of all people, calling Mr. Putin a war criminal after he bombed 10 innocent civilians, 7 of them which was children, in a botched retaliatory strike for the terrorist Kabul bombing, after he's bombed Somalia, Syria, many other places, killing innocent people. You know, refer to what's going on in Ukraine as a, here we go now, genocide. The U.S. just got done lighting Afghanistan on fire for 20 years, killing tens of thousands of people. I mean, we're still in Iraq. We've killed hundreds of thousands of people in Iraq. I mean, Vietnam, the overthrowing of democratically elected governments. Can't forget about what happened in Iran. I mean, the list goes on and on. But here we are grandstanding, pretending to be these bastions of justice, peace, and democracy as we condemn the enemies. But it's not really about that, is it? It's not really about Ukraine. It's not about the people there, even though they're suffering greatly. This is about a country that is on the decline, that's on the way down, and they're trying to grasp at everything, pointing fingers at everyone along the way to try to uphold and hold on to whatever amount of respect they still have. And it's not working out very well.